I got.
All right, I'm gonna call this meeting to order. Members present. Motion to approve the agenda.
Move to approve.
Motion for Deb, second for Marty. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Is there any potential conflicts of interest that need to be disclosed? Seeing none, consent agenda. Is there anything anybody would like to pull to discuss further? Any motion to approve? Motion from Marty. Second from Heather. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. We need to break up the women and the men. I can't tell.
I know, Ty
the
and
difference.
TJ.
Ty and TJ are gonna sit over there for the year.
I know. Making it difficult for me here. Old and continuing business. Oh, did we vote?
Yep.
Okay. Old and continuing business. One, open forum for public participation. Linda, why don't you go ahead? I think you're here to talk about the softball.
Softball, yes. So, can I just stay here?
Yeah, you can sit there, that's fine.
All right, good evening, everyone. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Amanda Bisbee. I'm here to talk to you tonight just in case you have any doubts about making fast pitch softball a varsity sport. I'm here on behalf of the 80-plus girls who are signed up for fast pitch softball this summer, but I'm also here especially for my team of 15-year-olds. They wanted to be here tonight, but we have a game in about an hour at Northern, so we didn't want them to give up that opportunity. So I'm here also representing them. A little background, I grew up in Michigan and spent most of my childhood on the fast pitch field. I started at 7 years old and played for 12 years. I had never heard of girls playing slow pitch until I moved to South Dakota. I've always thought to myself, what a disservice it is to our young ladies to never get a chance to play fast pitch. It is a completely different game, and it's in the name. It is fast pitching, fast-paced, competitive, aggressive softball. It has many of the same rules as baseball, and if you've never seen a game, you should go and watch because they are really fun. If a varsity team is not approved here tonight, my concern is where do we go from here? It seems unfair to teach these girls to play fast pitch from the ages of 8 to 15 and then make them age out at 16 to go to an adult slow pitch league. But that is what will happen if varsity softball isn't approved. And what happens in the summer when our girls have to play other schools that all have a varsity team? How will we ever be able to be competitive with them? Varsity softball is a chance for the girls of Groton to have another team that they can play aggressively and competitively on. This is not just to help them become better athletes, but to help build their confidence, teach them resilience, and help promote their mental toughness. As I said, in coaching the 14 and 15-year-old team this summer, and last Wednesday they had their first wins of the season. If you were in the ballpark, you knew they won. If you were within 5 blocks of that ballpark, you knew they won. The excitement on their faces and in their cheers was contagious. Tomorrow night is this team's last game of their first fast pitch season. If varsity softball is not approved tonight, it is also their last game ever of fast pitch for them, as they will age out of the summer league. So I know that money is always the biggest consideration when it comes to adding a new sport. Let me tell you, when I talked to the girls about this at our practice, within 5 minutes, they brainstormed more ideas than you could possibly come up with. They brainstormed fundraisers, area businesses to contact for donations. They are willing to put in the work to make this happen. I've also been told that we have the full support of the Groton Baseball Softball Foundation. So to close, I'm just asking on behalf of those 80-plus talented and athletic girls who learned to love a new sport this summer to give them a chance to play. Give them the same amazing memories that I had on that softball field and am still making by being able to coach them this summer. Thank you.
Thank you. Would you girls like to talk, or you just want to wait until, because we'll be talking about an hour about it, so. Good? All right, yeah, I'd say it's be about another hour before we get into it.
I'm going to take off to the game. So.
Thank you. Okay, number 2, approval of the June 25 financial report, custodial accounts and investments.
So we do have our reports in, the first one that's on top of it, this is kind of for our next meeting, but it's additional July bills that's in front of it at the end of today. Because this is the season we're ordering, so we're getting bills by the minute, it feels like, with all of our curriculum, so we wanted to make sure you guys got that in. So end of fiscal year is June 30th, kind of wrapping up some things here. We'll be doing the annual report fairly soon, so there might still be some cleaning up a little bit with the fiscal year end. And then I hope, like in August, September, I'd like to give kind of an overview of how the district did last fiscal year, and then put annual reports together, something that's easier for the board to read, with a little bit of narrative to it. So that's kind of my objective for you guys this coming year in the next couple months. And then, you just want me to go down for the supplemental budget, just kind of look at that? Or do you-
We'll approve,
Okay.
we'll approve this one then we'll go there. Mayor, motion to approve.
Move to approve.
Motion from Nick, second from Marty, all in favor say aye. All opposed, motion carries. Okay, approval of supplemental budget fiscal year 25-4.
Seeing in your district packet, I think there's a lot. Just do it. This supplemental budget's just, the end of our wrap-up for the fiscal year. There are just a couple things that need to be cleaned up, such as like our destination imagination. We had some donations coming back, and that involved some extra expenditures, so, that was one of the bigger line items, and then just a couple things on salary basis, just to clean up the end of our fiscal year. I can't find it in here. Oh, sorry, a second. And then, the other ones were a couple bigger ones for our special education was physical therapy and occupational therapy. Just reorganizing some funds in that. We've had quite a few more kids utilize those services this year than we did last year, especially occupational therapy, so. And those are just cash on hand. And then, contingency, we usually have a line item in our, budget. We have $50,000 that we usually have in the contingency fund. And this year, we've only had to really utilize $3,500 to transfer those, and those are above their in general fund. So we stuck pretty good to each line item this year.
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion from Marty to approve, second from Heather, all in favor say aye. All opposed, motion carries. Approval of June 25 school lunch report.
Okay, you go back towards the front of your board pack, about the fourth page, you'll find, lunch report. And obviously, we haven't had anything for a month and a half or so in there, well, 2 months now, but at the end of June, about 6 weeks, but it's a good, kind of review of how the last school year went. And so, kind of look at that middle, section of numbers in the bottom, the number of kids eating lunch per day down about 15 kids, which is almost the same as the change in enrollment. So we'd always like to see that number grow and be bigger, but I think a lot of the difference there is just really in line with what enrollment is. Breakfast numbers is not as substantial, it's just a smaller number of kids that eat. Well, I'm glad we're doing it. It's probably only been about 7 or 8 years when we started doing school breakfast, and we started with about 5 or 6 kids. It's, for those kids that take advantage of that and utilize it, it's a pretty good program, and so we're happy about that. Christy and I will be finishing up the food service application for the next school year and getting that all in place, and we'll set lunch rates at the end of the next half of this meeting for the fall too. But other food service item that's not showing up here, we're having a freezer issue. We're having to fix compressor going out, so it's probably a ballpark about a $5,000 repair issue. But bright side, if there is one, is that it's summertime and the fridge is not full of food. So you get it taken care of before that is, otherwise that becomes a much more expensive problem, so. Questions on school lunch?
Move to approve.
Motion from Deb to approve,
Second.
second from Heather, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion carries. Approval of
You might wanna check with the insurance on that, see if there's installed equipment breakdown. If there is, that usually carries a separate deductible.
Okay.
All I can tell you is no.
Worth the phone.
Even if it's how many years old.
Yeah.
Yeah, they'll depreciate it down, it'll be worth about 50 cents.
Yep. Would probably make us.
Won't cover the stamp.
All right, now your premium's gone up by $10,000. Perfect.
We'll see. Thank you.
Approval of June 25 school transportation report.
You've got kind of the second two pages in your board packet, one on the auto fleet, and the second one, which is very small, but that's the bus fleet. So on the auto fleet, a couple things that I have marked here to mention. We've got some fiscal '26 budget money for vehicle replacement, not a school bus, which we're expecting a school bus to arrive here in the end of this month or August. We still anticipate before the start of the activity season. If you remember, we approved purchasing that back in November or December. It's been a while. Unfortunately, now with the tariff world, we're going to get hit with a $3,500 tariff fee to get delivery of our bus. So here we go again, right? We've been playing this game since COVID.
Even though it was ordered way before.
Yeah, and should have been. I mean, materials were obviously here, and yep. Supposedly, it has to do with the billing date. All goes by the billing date or whatever.
It's made in the US.
Yeah. It's another way to
Because they can.
make a buck. Yep. I know that's happening. I mean, I think it was. I don't remember if it was the city of Aberdeen or Brown County. Somebody locally here had faced the same thing with some gravel truck type equipment. Exactly the same situation where they got charged a fee, supposedly as a result of the tariffs to help offset costs. But we still anticipate that it's on its way and should be here before we need it this fall. So a couple of the vehicles, obviously, we have a lot of vehicles with a lot of miles on it. Our two driver's ed cars are probably on the top of the list of being on their way out. Those just have a ton of miles on them, probably need to be replaced. We do use those during the school year to transport students. And I know Damien would like to look at another big van, like a 12 or 15 passenger van. Those get a lot of use also. And so it's kind of in the shopping mode to try to find a reasonably priced used one without a ton of miles on it and see what we can get, so.
Is there any programs available through the dealers or through the vehicle manufacturers? We always used to have brand new cars every year would come through Trail.
That you bought or?
No, they just a donation to the school to use it through GM. And then I remember my folks bought one of them. I had a few thousand miles on it afterwards. It was kind of a demo type deal.
I know some districts do like a local business. I don't know if the big manufacturers do it anymore, but they'll have advertisements around on the vehicles, so it's a walking billboard and as a driver's ed.
Be worth looking into too.
Check with Nick and see, I mean.
Yeah. Again, the worst you can say is no.
All right.
We do have, we're also getting a trailer, replacing our small trailer that we use to haul equipment, football equipment. Been using it for track. So that'll be coming here too in the next month or so, which would be a big improvement. We use those big vans to pull that, so kind of, we'll make sure it has the towing equipment and stuff too. But Damien's on top of that and taking care of that. We've gotten really used to and we really like the minivans for transporting students during the day. It's easier for the drivers to get in and out of and help buckle students in and out of because it's not so low ground and easier for kids to get in and out of and so on and so forth. So we've been using the heck out of those to transport special ed students and IEP kids and stuff throughout the day. And that's been really so we're always kind of on the lookout for those two. And they get a lot of miles on them, they're hard miles, or gravel miles a lot of times. Is what it is, but Damien does a good job keeping stuff running and keeping it on the road for us. Inspection wise, he's bogged down getting all the buses inspected. He's been taking them over there a couple at a time. He doesn't want them just sitting over there to be inspected. And if there's anything to fix on them, then they can do that while he's got them over there, which is over in Webster. And then he's right in the heart of route building, making phone calls and finding out who's planning to ride every day and building routes for the upcoming school year. So getting busy out in that department.
Your motion to approve the school transportation.
So moved.
Second.
Motion from Heather, second from Marty, all in favor say aye. All opposed, motion carries. Second reading and approval of the recommended policy changes for school board meetings, facilities capitalization program, special ed related services, public complaints about curriculum, instructional materials, compulsory attendance ages, exemptions, all kinds of stuff there. Multi-occupancy room use and graduation ceremony decoration.
No changes since we presented them a month ago, just a second reading and approval. Does anybody have any questions, want another copy?
Be the guest reader, Paul. Guest reader and read these.
You wanna stay here till midnight?
Your motion to approve,
So moved.
motion from Marty,
Second.
second from Heather, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion carries. Administrative reports, superintendent's report.
First thing I have on my list is the joint convention, ASBSD, SASD joint convention. It's always that first kind of weekend in August. Early registration deadline's coming up this week, so if it's something that you're interested in attending, let me know. We can get you registered. Right behind this is a grid that shows the schedule, what kinds of breakout sessions there are, things that you could choose to go to while you're there. There's a website where you can go and kind of read up what those sessions are. If the title piques your interest, but you're not quite sure what it is, you can go find out there. That's also the day we're getting our Little Red Schoolhouse Award.
Is that on
That
Thursday or
convention.
Friday?
That's on Thursday.
Okay.
That's on
If
Thursday.
anybody wants to go, I'm driving down Thursday and probably driving back Thursday night, so all you wanna do is go down there for a day, you can either.
The keynote speaker has talked a lot around the country. His main topic, I believe, is going to be homeschool policy. He's big into the research on that across the country as far as states that have adopted paying for families to homeschool. So he knows a lot about that. Pretty interesting stuff to listen to. So I anticipate that's most of what his keynote's going to be. A couple dates for you to keep on your radar for next spring around negotiations. March 31st and April 1st will be corresponding dates, a Tuesday, Wednesday, just like what we did this spring. It's right after we anticipate that we'll get our health insurance rate increases, and we'll know kind of where we're at. There should be after the legislative budget session and all of that. So if you can kind of pencil that in for now, present that to the teachers too, but those will be the 2 dates that we used this year, so, and I think that worked really well. So if you kind of just pencil those in for now. A little bit on federal title funding. We don't get a ton of federal title funding, but we do get some, and any amount of money these days is a significant amount of money. On July 3rd, we got a notice from the South Dakota Department of Education that we should go ahead and submit our consolidated application, which is for all the title programs, with the amounts that were in there. And we had received our allocation for Title 1A, which is our biggest one, but none of the other title funds were in there. So Title 2A, Title 4A, which essentially we always use for Title I purposes. There's a flexibility allowed because we're so small and we're spread out that we can use those to fund Title I activities. On June 30th, the federal government notified the states' departments of education that they would not be releasing those funds on July 1. And so those funds are allocated by Congress, they're there, but they're not being released by the Trump administration. Now, today, I was reading the news when I left for work and when I came back. Supreme Court heard a case and issued a ruling today on layoffs at the US Department of Education. And so basically paves the way so that the Trump administration can carry through some of the layoffs that they had tried to implement here a couple months ago in the Department of Education, which is gonna have the effect eventually of moving some of those key functions out of the Department of Ed into different departments. And so part of me would like to believe that the money that's allocated is still going to flow through to the states and then to us, but probably through a different department, not necessarily from the Department of Education. So, and who knows how long that's going to take. So the consolidated application for Title I is due on June 30, so we submitted ours before we even got notice that, hey, you should probably still submit this. We'd already had it done. Not a word from the state about what was gonna happen to that until, again, after the fact, after that was already due. Put some numbers in here as far as, it's $6.8 billion in federal funding across the country. Of course, we're a much smaller school in a rural state, and we don't have a high number of low-income students, and so our Title funds are a lot less than that. Even our Title I funds are down. But the biggest issue right now is in that flexibility funds. And right now, we're looking at $13,190 compared to $45,000 in the last fiscal year. So that's obviously a pretty big delta. So the email said that was sent to the states, decisions have not been made concerning submissions and awards for this upcoming academic year. So we will not be issuing grant award notifications obligating funds on July 1st prior to completing that review. So there's a little bit of an open door there that if they are gonna actually complete that review and just decide how they're gonna administer the funds, it's just gonna take as long as the federal government can take to rewrite red tape, essentially. So,
You want to tell them how our Title I funds work, like elementary, what we use Title I funds for?
I mean, our Title I funds basically are kind of our entire RTI system right now. We fund staff members, they employ people. We use funds to pay for class size reduction in kindergarten, which is the other half of our junior kindergarten teachers' position. And they go in the mornings, and there's essentially 3 kindergarten teachers for the morning when they're doing math and reading. It allows those groups to be much, much smaller. So, Alexa's title, her RTI math is title, and Miss Greaves' RTI reading is title. There's some overlap there in Title II. The other title programs that are in question would be like Title III. Title III is our EL programs, which we don't get Title III funding directly, but we are part of the state consortium that would be accessing Title III funds on our behalf to provide services that we need to teach our English language learners. And so if the state's not getting the funds, then that whole consortium, I would think, is a big question mark right now as far as what they're gonna be able to provide for us in the year going forward. So a lot of questions there around what's gonna happen with the title funds. A bigger issue, not that this is not a big issue, it's plenty big issue, and something that every school's gonna have to wrestle with across South Dakota. If something doesn't happen, those funds don't come through. We don't think there's any immediate impact to IDEA funding, which would be special education. It's a big piece, much bigger even than title. Ours flows through funds our special ed co-op, but still services that we take advantage of very much so for our kids, and not aware of any impact to the USDA school lunch program. So those are the 2 major federal line items to keep our eye on as belt tightening happens out in DC and things get shifted and moved and so on and so forth. So, questions on that? And just a quick update on the Comprehensive Property Tax Task Force. They had a second meeting in Sioux Falls a couple weeks ago, and they talked for 4 hours about the issue of property taxes in South Dakota, and the entire recording is online if you care to go listen to it. They tried to set a goal for the group as far as what did they want to bring out of that group for meaningful legislation for next year that they thought could get passed, and kind of when I turned it off and stopped listening, they were trying to kind of teeter around trying to reduce owner-occupied property taxes by at least, was the word, at least 50%. So then there's a lot of debate yet to happen as far as what does that mean? Is that strictly on reduction of expenditures, or is it a replacement tax that's going to be made up somewhere else? Is it reduction of expenditures at the state level, which would increase the amount of state aid available then? Or is it a reduction of expenditures at the local level? And when I say local level, I'm not just talking about schools, we're talking about schools and municipalities and counties and everything that falls under that property tax window. So they took probably 2 hours of public testimony from a wide range of opinions. You name it, somebody talked about it. Everybody from, you know, of the position that all of our local governments way overspend, all the way to the opposite extreme where there's no more fluff to be cut and we can't cut anything and this has to be made up dollar for dollar in a different tax. And so, and everything in between. So that's something that that group is gonna have to wrestle with. There was some that had advocated for, you know, abolishment of property tax, period, across all classifications. There were some that said that's not the scope of this committee. We're supposed to be focused on the owner-occupied section of this tax only. And so they spent a lot of time talking about TIFs, tax increment finance districts, and what the impact of that is. And that's honestly just a lot of education for the people on the committee about how the property tax system works, because there's a lot of folks that just don't know all of it, and they don't understand how the funding formula is set, they don't understand how the levies are set by the state, and how even if the state rolls back a levy, your tax could go up. The interplay between your valuation and your tax levies and some of that stuff that not everybody understands. So they have a lot more work to do. They're gonna meet this week in Rapid City. They have a meeting coming up in August, which is gonna be in Aberdeen. I plan to go to that if anybody wants to ride along. I think that Aberdeen meeting is actually their last scheduled meeting. Whether or not they're ready to wrap up by the end of that or not, I'm not sure. But
Do you know when that one is?
I'll get you the date. I
Let
don't
me
have it.
know.
Okay.
I might wanna go.
Okay.
You said most of their scope is on owner-occupied.
The adopted scope that they adopted at the resolution at the legislative session last fall specifically said owner-occupied. So I would argue the
Well, it's
the
hard.
focus of the committee is supposed to be on owner-occupieds.
I just don't know how they just attack owner-occupied without equalizing out with expenditures and.
Well, probably the most commonly talked about replacement proposal would be sales tax. And so they're saying, okay, well, if we need to raise $56 million of property tax revenue that right now is generated by property taxes on owner-occupied properties, this is what we would have to set the sales tax off at to generate that same amount of revenue.
Okay, so they're, okay.
So that's kind of what that's how they would replace that revenue. Wouldn't be extra property tax on the other two classifications, it would be a different kind of tax. Somebody floated the idea of a separate, essentially it's a sales tax, but earmarking it specifically for education, so it would be an entirely separate fund managed at the state level. That would be an education, like a replacement fund for property taxes, and that would flow through as state aid, just like anything does now. So you would see, it would take some tweaking to the formula, because you'd see an overall statewide reduction in local effort, and then that would be made up in presumably sales tax, which would be state aid dollars.
And how was that received by the committee in general? Because I'm looking down this list and,
Yeah, I don't think it's gonna have the legs.
wow.
And besides that, it would have to get a 2/3 majority vote in the legislature, which I don't think is gonna happen at all. And so that was the other thing, the committee trying to wrestle with, what kind of proposal can we bring forward that actually has a chance to go somewhere? Because they understand that it may not go anywhere. There's some pretty extreme views of people on the committee.
They're very anti-education.
Yep.
Anti-public education.
Very much
Is
so.
that
In fact, one of the first testifiers took the extreme position of our public schools ought to be reading, writing, and math, and that is it, period, and that's all they do, and that's all we should pay for, period. And everything else should just go away. That's the public function. That's the public function of providing public education. That's the basic, everything else is extra. It's add-on, it's fluff, it's, so, I mean, that's one of the, that opinion is out there, so.
Is that the committee?
Yep.
Is our reps and senators?
No.
No.
Oh, but
Imagine Sue Peterson.
Yes, she is.
Yes.
That's too bad.
Odenbach.
Of course, opt-outs have generated a lot of discussion. I don't know if
She's
you,
the one-
Kellan
she's
ran
the
a
one I
story
had to run in with, but she's-
just this last weekend about Sioux Falls opt-out. They've had one go off, they have like 5 or 6 opt-outs in place. They had one go off the books and they needed to renew it. They think they need to renew it. I don't know if they'll take the money or not. But, there's a group of petitioners trying to refer that to a public vote. When Sioux Falls, it's 5,500 voters. It's still 5%, the same 5% that we deal with, but they obviously have a lot more voters to have to deal with. So whether or not they'll get to refer that or not, I'm not sure, but
That could be the best thing that would happen, if it would get referred and get defeated. Now it's back in Sioux Falls, so they them people squawking,
yeah. Yep.
because as we all know, nothing happens in South Dakota till it affects Sioux Falls.
There were people on the committee that genuinely thought there was no referral process, no public input process for opt-outs or bond issues.
On the committee? There were members of the committee that
Sue
thought
Peterson
that?
is one of them.
She's one.
I could tell that by some of their testimony last session, that they had no
It's just,
idea.
it's so far from the truth and the way it's supposed to work and the way it can work. So,
My concern would be to, give the state that we have a hard time getting support from the state to begin with, and then you take away the local decision-making and give it to the state, well, what are the chances we're gonna see that money come back to us?
I think that was the real reason the person floated the idea of, let's call this an education fund or something, so that money was specifically allocated towards that from wherever. it
And
was,
we've
from
heard
the
that
sales tax or
before,
whatever.
I mean, in
Right.
very near
It's-
past,
it's
that
the
this is
trust.
for education, and then it didn't happen, so,
I don't know, there's that half penny sales tax that we haven't seen.
yeah.
Video
Video lottery, well, I mean, name it, it's all been for
General fund,
education.
they call it, it's
Yeah.
for education.
And the half penny, that's not a half penny anymore. That didn't
No.
last very long.
No,
Didn't stay in there very long. So,
it's interesting.
the worst case scenario on the property tax, I mean, where the rubber really meets the road is there's a growing number of mostly retirement age and older folks that are having a hard time paying that property tax bill. And they're being essentially pushed out of their homes because they're on fixed income and that property tax is growing and growing. And they own a home, but they still have to, pay the tax on in order to keep it. And I think that's the worst case scenario that people are really trying to get us off of. We can't have that. So,
That's really largely in about 5 counties.
but a sales tax is very regressive also, so I don't know that that's always a better solution.
Outlaws and sales tax exclusions.
One of the things that I wasn't too aware of is the number of, they were talking specifically about the number of exemptions and taking a look at that, because I think there's a lot of opportunity there to remove some exemptions, some tax loopholes, and collect some of those dollars through the existing tax scheme without really changing anything other than removing those exemptions, so.
Advertising.
Well, and the counties are probably strapped as bad or worse than the schools, and they've had a lot of county commissioners, come and speak to them about, if you start cutting our property taxes, they have a different issue because they have the list of unfunded state mandates that they're required to do and fund and pay for is very long, and so now if the state goes in and cuts their ability to levy tax money, how are they gonna pay for these things that they're required by state statute to do? One of the guys talked about the publication costs and how states are starting to move towards, publish it on your website. We could save a lot of dollars, sorry, Paul, save a lot of dollars not publishing things, paying to publish it in a newspaper. And so that idea's been discussed before. The newspaper lobby in South Dakota's always beat it down with the legislature. But I wouldn't be surprised to see stuff like that come through again. But I think that's really, when you cut right down to it, that's just nibbling around the edges of the issue. You're not gonna make a huge dent by doing stuff like that, but it's something. Questions? I'll try to come up with something more positive for next month.
Okay, thanks, Joe. principals reports, Ms. Edwards, anything, no,
Nope.
boring? Yep.
Yeah, not much going on right now. We'll be back end of this week.
Business manager's report,
Do you wanna jump to the budget hearing?
should we do the budget hearing now?
I think so.
Okay, we'll move into budget hearing then.
All right, it's me anyway, so we'll rock it. Okay, so I did put a copy of our published budget in your guys' packet, so it's under your board packet, it's towards the, right before the meeting minutes. Like this. Really from, when we looked at it earlier for our, May prelim to now, just a couple things that were updated,
Is this one here?
I've got a couple places, so I have it in your board packet, so under your
That
board
one there.
packet tab, and it's kind of towards the end, it's actually in different colors. Yeah, right before, the board minutes, so before. There you go. So this kind of
I'm
gives you
lost,
a
Becky.
good outline of
Towards the
our
front.
budget. And then I did give board members just an updated packet as well, that dives in deep, so you have one, if you have questions later.
Oh.
But a couple things that were just updated were, we got final kind of quotes in for a couple of our expenditures for curriculum. So capital outlay, I did see about a $20,000 increase from our prelim, and that was just getting, like I said, updated quotes for a lot of our just curriculum. General fund, I just saw about an increase about $8,800, and that was just for some benefits. And then special ed, I increased that about $5,300, and that was, again, just some benefits that needed to come up. And then food service and OST was the same as what we looked at in May. So that's kind of where we're at. Again, like in May, when we talked about a couple bigger things that we're looking at for our fiscal year here. Curriculum and instruction, so we're kind of big this year, so social studies and writing are big ones. And then in the elementary, middle school, we have social studies and English. A couple of different things just to upgrade our English department, that's like $3,700. English will be coming up this school year, next fiscal year, so we'll be seeing that. But then high school, we saw science and social studies, so those were some bigger for our curriculum. We talked about our football facilities, that's currently in the works right now, so our sound system, we have in the budget, field lighting, and then we do have some upgrades put in there, earmarked. Hopefully in the next couple of years we can keep going. And then the crow's nest, but along with the crow's nest, there's been donations coming in for that, so essentially, I think the goal is to have that covered by donations. So, you'll probably see that as a supplemental budget a little bit later, or just kind of an earmark of what donations came in to counteract that. So it is in our budget, but I think it's gonna be covered all by donations. Some of the facility stuff that we're working on for fiscal year this year, parking lot repairs, pretty much have those completed this July. So a lot of it is just the asphalt and sealing, some of the cracks. And then sewer piping, that is going on now. So, those things, so we have two main pipes, and Mr. Schwan talked last month about them, but we have one in our older edition, the 1930s edition, and then we have one pipe that goes all the way to the kitchen that they're working on. So we've had some sewer issues in the past, so hopefully that'll kind of keep us going for some time being, and we don't have to have those bathrooms shut down as much as we did in the past couple of years. Elevator maintenance, we always have to earmark quite a bit, about $70,000 for elevator. So that's one expense, having a two-story building. We always have to keep that because of our ADA compliance, so that's always a bill that is in there that maybe long-term wise, if you just had a one floor, that would eventually go away. Kitchen plumbing, kind of talked about that, and then we did have earmarked about $7,500 for some greenhouse repairs. Those are kind of, some of the panels are just getting pretty old and sun's not coming through the greenhouse. flowers grow, so. So those are kind of the bigger things for utilities, or for our facilities, and then curriculum, and then transportation. Joe kind of went through that earlier, so I won't kind of, do that. Like I said, bus, we've got a trailer, and then we've got some earmarked for vehicle as a breakdown, or hopefully we can update one more vehicle. And then athletics, we do have, kind of our same concept of some uniform rotations that we get in there, and then, just a couple other pieces of equipment that are needing to be upgraded. So, with that, that's kind of our bigger expenditures in a nutshell. For my general fund, we're looking about a 2% increase this year from last year, so, when we look at that for things being inflated and everything, that's not too bad of an increase for expenditures for, general fund. Capital outlay, we are down. It's kind of hard to tell because we are taking out some ESSER funding, that we were getting reimbursed for to do some updates and everything like that. So, but the other thing too is we're not doing a transfer anymore from capital outlay to general fund. So now we're able to start making some repairs to things and getting a new bus. So that's kind of a nice thing to see. Special ed, we're up about 6%, and that is really because of our therapies. We just see a lot more kids needing services in those departments. And then, just even with our North Central co-op, like those expenditures are up as well. So we usually spend about 92% of our budget in special ed, so it could just be a little bit higher that I do have it. But it's really hard with special education because you never know if you have a student who might need residency programs, and you just don't know until it happens. So we got to earmark some of those things too, for those just in case standards. And then, like I said, food service and OST, those are pretty, cut and dry. I have, an increase about 7% for food, and that's really just because of food costs. You just kind of don't know until we get into the program and see what they're charging for transportation and everything like that, so. So that's kind of my budget in a nutshell. Like I said, you guys kind of have the line items in your packet that are updated. Does anybody have any questions? And like Joe said, kind of with the Title II programs and our consolidated app in the budget, we have it in there, but time will tell to see come October if they actually allocate the remainder 33,000 or not. I think that's kind of a difference between a general fund versus, a reimbursement from federal funds, so. We'll have to kind of relook at that for the future, see what their process is gonna be for that. The other thing I do have is in my packet for business manager, I do have our request, our tax levy request, a copy of that in there. This was also, gave to you guys in May, so really this hasn't changed hasn't changed at all. So I have the actual request we send into the counties, and then the calculation of the school levies on the second page there. So you can kind of see the breakdown, which is kind of nice, especially you can see just off of our general fund versus sped, capital outlay, and then it also breaks it down of our general fund opt-out. So the tax levies on that. Like I said, that hasn't changed since our discussion in May. But there has been a lot of changes, so. With that, that is what I have for our budget hearing. Any questions?
Okay, thank you. Is there any questions for Becky? Okay. Looks like I need a motion to adjourn.
To adjourn.
She got it. Motion from Deb to adjourn. Can I hear a second?
Second.
Sure.
Second from Heather. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion carries. Thanks, Deb.
Thanks,
Made it
Deb.
the last meeting.
John, I have
You can stay for the rest of the
Yeah,
meeting.
stay.
You're using
It's-
your hour.
It's invigorating, trust me.
Alan's home cleaning, don't worry about it.
All right.
Thank you,
Thanks, Deb.
Deb.
Can you open up this meeting then, Joe?
Right.
You do?
Can I just sit right here? Yep. Yes. All right, I'm gonna call this meeting to order. 10:46. Okay. First, we're gonna bring in our new members here. So, acting as chairman pro term, I'd like to call this first meeting of the 25-26 school year in order and read the school board oath of office to install Samantha Weber as newly elected appointed school board member. You ready? Ready. Okay. All right, Samantha, do you solemnly swear to affirm that you will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of South Dakota, observe the enforced state laws, regulations pertaining to education, accept office as a board member as a means of unselfish service, transact school business only in a regular session, represent the entire community without fear or favor, remember at all times that you are one member of a team, accept all board decisions once they are made and assist in carrying them out effectively, delegate action to the chief school administrator as the board executive and confine board action to policy making, planning, and appraisal, employ only competent trained personnel and only these on the recommendation of the chief school administrator, preserve the right and obligation of teachers to teach controversial issues fairly and without bias, file a bond if required by law and having been approved, and do you swear to faithfully and impartially perform your duties as a member of the school board of Groton Area School District 06-6 of Brown, Clark, Day, Marshall, and Spink counties in South Dakota to the best of your ability and in accordance with the laws now in effect and hereafter to be enacted during your continuance in said office or until your successor is elected and qualified? If so, answer, I do. Congratulations. Welcome aboard. We have a certificate for you. See me after class. Okay. Okay, at this time, I'd like to open the floor for nominations of the 25-26 school board president. Do I hear any nominations?
I'll nominate Grant for president and make the motion that all nominations cease and cast a unanimous ballot.
Okay. Nominations out there for Grant and to cease nominations from the floor. Do I have a second?
Second.
Nick? All right. All yay.
Yay.
Any nays? All right. Congratulations.
All right, thank you, everybody. Excited to do it for another year. Yeah, I know it was a hard-fought battle for me, but we got it, so. All right, I now need a vice president. So, is there any nominations for vice president? Anybody like to nominate somebody for vice president?
I nominate Nick.
Have Sam nominating Nick Strum for vice president. Is there any other nominations? Okay, seeing none. We have motion to
Cease nominations.
cease nominations and cast unanimous ballot. All in favor say aye. All opposed? Motion carries. Congratulations, Nick, Mr. VP. Okay, I needed a motion to approve the agenda and no amendments, so motion to approve the agenda.
So moved.
Motion from Marty.
Second.
Second from Nick. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Potential conflicts of interest that need to be disclosed. We've got two here, and Sam, when we do the conflicts of interest, they only need to be presented once, right, for the year? So they don't need to be presented again. So this one here is for Becky Hitch, our business manager, who is also the business manager for North Central Special Ed Co-op. Disclosure, is for the purpose of notifying the school board of a direct benefit from the contract. All parties in the contract are North Central Special Ed Co-op, Groton Area School District. The person's role in the contract transaction, she serves as the business manager for the North Central Special Ed Co-op, and she serves as the business manager for the Groton Area School District. The purpose objectives of the contract is to fulfill the duties of the co-op business manager, and contract 2 to fulfill the duties of a school district business manager. The consideration or benefit conferred or agreed to be conferred upon each party. Contract 1 is $13,500 in salary negotiated with the North Central Special Ed Co-op. Contract 2 is $95,000 in salary negotiated with the Groton Area School District. Length of time of the contract, contract 1 is for the Special Ed Co-op is 39 days. Contract 2 is 260 days with the Groton Area School District. No other relevant information. So right now comes to the board action. Conflict of interest disclosure of a direct benefit dated July 14th, 2025 was received from Becky Hipsch. This manager disclosure was considered by the members of the Groton Area School District Board during a meeting held on July 14th, 2025. So we have three options. The request for authorization was denied because of the terms of the contract were determined to be fair, not be fair, reasonable, and were deemed contrary to the public interest. 2, the direct benefit of the contract was authorized because the terms of the contracts are fair, reasonable, and non-contrary to the public interest. And 3, the request for the waiver was authorized because of the terms of the contract are fair, reasonable, and not contrary to the public interest, such as waivers should be granted subject to the following conditions.
I'll move we authorize it, the second choice.
Okay, Marty moves that we authorize it because of the direct benefit from the contract was authorized with no waivers.
Second.
Second from Heather. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Supposed to need to sign that, don't I? This side here. Okay, number 2. This is for Joseph Schwan, Superintendent. Disclosures for purpose of notifying the board of a direct benefit from a contract. Number 1, all parties to the contract: Joe Schwan, Superintendent, Groton Area School District. Contract 2, Jody Schwan, Opportunities Coordinator of the Groton Area School District. The person's role in the contract or transaction: Contract 1, serve as the school district superintendent, and Contract 2, serve as the high school opportunities coordinator. 3, the purpose objectives of the contract: to fulfill the duties of the school district superintendent. Contract 2, to serve the needs of the subset of students in the Groton Area School in need of academic, behavioral, and social support. The consideration or benefit conferred or agreed to be conferred upon each party. Contract 1, $131,924, and Contract 2, $52,112.78. The length of the time of the contract: Contract 1, annual, 260 days. Contract 2, annual, 185 days. No other relevant information.
I'll move we approve it with no conditions.
I have a motion from Marty to approve with no conditions.
Second.
Second from Nick. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Consent agenda. There's quite a bit here, so go ahead and read through them quick. And if there's anything on there, please let me know if you need to pull for further discussion.
Move to approve.
Motion from Marty to approve.
Second.
Second from Heather. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. New business, review and acknowledge South Dakota open meeting law pursuant SDCL 1-25-13.
new statute on the books requires us to annually review with you this material that's put out by the Attorney General's office, which is material that was available long before this year. They haven't redone anything. And we have to document in our minutes that we've gone through the open meeting laws with you. Timing is pretty good after we just went through this with Dr. Fogarty the other day at our board training. This is the same pamphlet that was in your binders from Dr. Fogarty that we already talked about. Issues primarily that this would talk about would be purposes and rules around executive session and kind of establishing a quorum and not communicating as a quorum about school business outside of public meetings. Does anybody have any questions on what your requirements are? We just went through them, so. If they publish new information, new pamphlets, new guidance, we'll bring that when it happens. Kind of thought maybe they would prior to this. I think every school district in the state tonight probably is going through this. I thought maybe they would have, although the open meeting statutes haven't changed. They're the same as they've been, so.
Sam, there's a quiz next month.
Do we need to vote on it? No.
No.
Okay. Okay, number 2, adopt fiscal year 26 district budget and authorize business manager to file tax request with county auditors.
Have any questions? Kind of just went through it.
Move to adopt and file.
Second.
Motion from Marty, second by Sam. All in favor, say aye. All opposed? Motion carries. First reading of recommended policy changes. School board elections, background checks for volunteers and employees of contractors.
Okay, essentially 2 policy issues here. One is about school board elections. The state passed a law that requires us to have our board elections with, they give us 2 days. We can do it in June or we can do it in November. We can no longer have our April school board meetings. The idea is to try to get it in alignment with either the primary elections in June or the main elections in November, with the goal of increasing and improving voter turnout. So whether or not it'll have that effect, I don't know. The way I have the policy written, this should be in your new business section of your board packet there. Ours reads that we will have our election the first Tuesday after the first Monday in June between 7 and 7. Really, it'll be tight, but it won't change the way we function and how we swear new board members in at the July meeting at the start of our fiscal year. So we should be able to have that meeting in June, not in April. Possibility of holding joint elections with municipalities, with counties, and so on. Policy is not specific to how that works, but.
I was gonna put that in, I had it in my board report, but then we went to our budget hearing, but just like Mr. Schwan said, you're always able to work with your counties on your elections, and with this moving to June, this might be a great opportunity to kind of work with our counties. I had reached out to Brown County just since they are our biggest county, and what would that look like, and a lot of it would be, you would sign kind of an agreement, a yearly agreement with them that you would do a joint election with them, but essentially you would be splitting the cost to run that election with other rural schools in the county itself. So, the one nice thing is, you're reaching more of your voters during that time instead of having, 2 different places you're going for that. And then also with that too is, once we receive petitions, so those would still come through my office, who wants to run. And then once we have the petitions out and those have been looked through and make sure like everybody's good on those, then my job is to get that information to the county, and then essentially they kind of take it from there and put it all on the ballot, make sure publications are ready to go, and then they find the election workers, and then we split those costs. We don't have elections every year on board members, so it's kind of one every few years. So we'll see how it goes. We still do our motion in January to set our date for this, but essentially we're pretty limited now. It's either June or November, and we're come January, we'll make those decisions, but, so I've just been kind of reaching out to all of our counties, and some of them say, well, it might be cheaper for you to go on your own, but essentially, since we have 5 counties we work with, it might just be beneficial on our end to work with our counties. At least this first go around, if we do have an election, just to see what the cost actually would look like. So, that's kind of my recommendation, is to try it with the counties.
We leave the notification date in January, or publication date. We're tied in November, we'd have to do it before November, fall, right?
No, it'd be next November.
Yeah.
So you'd have a school board member, whoever's going off would be still in the kind of a lame duck period until, from July till November, so it's behind always. So they would essentially be taking office halfway through that first year, or what I would say is halfway through that first year, which to me is just goofy, would be goofy.
That's why I was thinking common sense wise, you have to go before November if you want to have a November election.
Yeah, no, so everybody would still fulfill their first, or their full term, which will take them through June 30th, and then the replacement wouldn't be elected then until November. So, even with the June meeting, they suggested, we'll have to see how it plays out, but they have to have a special meeting between the June election date and our July meeting to canvass the votes, so the persons can be sworn in at the July meeting, but, because this will still be the canvassing board for that. The other 2 policies are on background checks. Earlier this spring, the DCI that runs our background checks program sent a notice out statewide to schools that basically said we don't have authorization to do background checks on our volunteers and employees of contractors. So let's say we have like a food service contract with a company. The way our old policy read, we could require those employees to undergo a background check, just like our teachers do, just like any of our regular employees do. But the federal FBI, when they were auditing our state, they said, no, you can't do this, you can't use this background check procedure for non-employees. And so they sent that out and said, hey, you gotta stop doing this on your volunteers, and a lot of schools, and we were one of them, responded back saying, well, we're not okay with that, we have to do these background checks, what else is there? And now it's, from the employee perspective or the volunteer perspective, and from the public perspective, there will be no difference in this. There's 2 separate procedures, 2 separate sets of fingerprint cards, one for employees and a different one now for volunteers. It has a different code on it, we can still do it, it's just under a different authorization. So these 2 policies essentially being split out. The second policy is new, which was initially included in the first policy. Again, the end effect will be that we're still conducting background checks on employees and volunteers of the district, and we still can do that on employees of contractors if we need to. So this changes our procedures in the office a little bit, grab a different card and send it. So that's those policy changes.
Okay, thank you. Number 4. Yes,
I think we forgot the committees.
I think that's further down. Is it not, or did I miss
That's
something?
what I put in election.
Oh, ad hoc committees, yep, we can go back and do that here.
Catch.
Back to the appointments to the various ad hoc committees, so Marty and I are on the Forever Committee, negotiations. Lifers. Unless somebody else wants to help us out. We've got,
How many people are usually on each committee, or just 2?
Deb was
it
on
can
the
be as many as you
negotiation
want.
one.
The last
Yeah.
couple of years, it's always been 2.
Yeah, Marty and I.
Well, Steve and I were for a while, and Steve and Kelly, and then.
Yep, and then I got on when Kelly went off. Yeah, I mean, there is no
Doesn't
set
matter.
number of people that.
The way we're doing it anymore, it's no big deal.
It really isn't, because most of the,
The only thing is whoever's on the committee only goes in and talks.
yeah.
I mean, fine to have 3, whatever.
Mm-hmm. What are you on personnel policy?
Nick and I were personnel policy, and then Deb was
She was on negotiations.
She was
negotiations.
What is
Yeah.
TJ?
TJ and Ty.
TJ and Ty were building.
Might be more imperative to have, with everything we're talking and
move on to buildings, I guess.
Would you?
Yeah, I could do that. You wanna do policy?
That sounds fun.
Okay.
It's actually not,
It's actually
not a bad.
not a bad, yeah.
It actually is. My first year on policy is when we were going through all the books and spent a lot of time adjusting.
You'll find out that most of the policy amendments we make don't have a lot of autonomy in them.
Yep.
It's not judgmental, it's just a matter of doing it.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Sounds good, and then personnel policy.
So it's just, yeah, stay.
You just stay in there. Yep. Okay. Thank you, Marty, for getting us back on track there. Okay. Approve sponsorship of the sport of girls softball for the 26th season.
In your new business packet, there's kind of a front and back, a one-pager that talks about some of the things that actually, this is as much for my benefit as it was for everybody else's. Things that I didn't know about state sanctioned softball that I thought might be questions. What does it look like? What's the classification? What does the season look like? And so on and so forth. On the back side of that, I guess towards the bottom are pertinent numbers.
Where's it at?
Relative to,
Towards the back.
It's in the back,
Almost last, second to last
New
page.
business.
new business in the back.
Second to last page.
Found it. Sorry, yep. I'll have all last
Didn't
ones.
get one. There's a-
Right behind
Right behind all the policies.
background checks.
Oh, there it is. All right, I do that.
so there's just a little background information on what the season would look like, where we would be classified, the number of games, and visiting with Alexa a little bit about what a season would look like. She thinks there's about 14 or 15 schools regionally that we could schedule with, and that's kind of what her goal would be for an inaugural season to kind of hit that 14, 15 contest mark with schools that are kind of reasonably close without traveling too terribly far, and as a way to get started. Somewhere between 10 and 20 games is a season. I don't know if you're interested in what a regulation game is, maybe it doesn't make any difference to you. A roster is 16 players for postseason, and so given the numbers that we have participating now and through the summer programs, I mean, I could see it being similar to the way our club baseball schedules have gone, where they've had to go to some JV schedules too. I could see there being enough interest where we'd have more girls interested in participating in organized softball than what could fit on a varsity roster. That could be an issue. I think we're probably closer to that being reality than not having enough to field a good team. So that's a good thing. That's a good thing. The back is kind of a list of things that just basic equipment and trying to put together what does a budget potentially look like for trying to start a team. And obviously you can have an initial investment in equipment, although I think there's a good opportunity there to maybe share some equipment that could ease us into this over the first couple of years if we don't want to bite that all off. Just I don't know if it's the city bought it or the foundation bought it, but equipment has been purchased for the seasons like this summer, and I think it makes sense to share at some point, and at some point we'll share back that kind of a thing. And then obviously your other biggest expenditure is gonna be your coaching stipends, which we set through negotiations last spring, not knowing whether or not we would approve softball, but we wanted to have them in place in the event that we did, and that's what those are salary set at. There's obviously gonna be some travel expenses, which will be part of our athletic travel budget, won't be a separate line item. It just depends on what the schedule, looks like. Those are kind of the major,
Game costs with umpires. Some game costs with
umpires, but we'll probably have some,
field work.
some revenue, the field work, hopefully it's stuff that we can kind of take care of under our current custodial costs, but there will be some of that there too. I suppose we'll have to have another formal lease agreement with the city to use the facility. It's kind of like we do with the soccer field, which is not a big, it's just basically a maintenance agreement, who's gonna take care of it and when, and be responsible for that. And I have not approached them directly about as far as anybody at City Hall to verify anything. I think that's kind of putting the cart before the horse, but I feel confident in our county. Work through all of those things. I know one of the concerns of the folks that have been working really hard on getting softball established is that if it's something we're gonna go to eventually down the road, you don't wanna wait until the schools you're gonna compete against have done it for 4 and 5 years, because you'll be that far behind when you start and you'll get thumped bad. It's hard to probably get a program started at that point. So if it's something that we're considering doing, we're thinking we wanna do, probably makes the best sense to get in on it closer to the front end than towards the back end. I know the baseball discussion on a statewide level now is kind of cooled off a little bit.
It's on hold temporarily. It's still there, but Dan sent a survey out, and it's over 60% were against doing it at this time, and the biggest reason was everybody's having financial issues, and we're making, schools are making cuts left and right, and then how do we justify? And we might get asked that same question. We just opted out. Money's tight, how do we justify adding something? But to me, it's a little different. This has been there 3 years now, and we're probably late to the game rather than being involved at the start. It's been softball. I've been fortunate enough to be at the 3 state tournaments, and they've been great. I mean, they've just been phenomenal. A and B are gonna be in Aberdeen again next year. Double A, everybody, they're all from the Sioux Falls area, and why they just can't drive to Aberdeen, that's just too far for them, so they're gonna play in Sioux Falls, but, everybody that's been up here really likes the atmosphere of the facility in Aberdeen, so now we just gotta get some teams from up in this little slice of paradise to be involved. Mulbridge was there this year, but then it was Lawrence Henry and Castlewood, and the rest were south.
There's a lot
So
of
the
schools
spring
up here.
baseball that we have now for the boys, that's not school?
It's not school sanctioned.
That's a
not-
club.
That's
It's a club
not
sport.
through the Activities Association, that's.
And just to be completely transparent, I would prefer if softball was a club sport in the spring too. It's just not. I wish, go back 10 years, I wish soccer was still a club sport too. It's just not. And that we could have an hour-long discussion about that. It's just not. But right now, baseball is a club sport in the state. There's not even the state-sanctioned baseball. One of the biggest, I think, pushers for me to say, because I totally get the budget concern and optics with it and all that, one of the biggest reasons why I can bring this forward and say I think this is something that we should seriously consider doing right away is because when the time comes, because we've had such an interest in the club baseball, when the time comes and the Activities Association says, okay, we're gonna go ahead and do this, I think the pressure will be pretty strong to go ahead and add baseball. I don't see us going from having a club baseball team to the club season disappearing to us not having any baseball in the spring. I just don't think the community's gonna allow us to do that. I think the expectation is gonna be you go ahead and add this. And how can you add that if you don't also add softball? And if you're gonna add softball, then again, I go back to you wanna get in on the front end and not the back end. So kind of, maybe that's not the right way to look at it.
No,
but
I
that's-
think you're spot on that. Yeah, we would, if baseball would've been approved, we'd have felt pressure to have a baseball program next year. Just with the history of baseball. And I know there was some concerns in the survey about Title IX. Well, I don't really see where that's gonna come in.
as far as like having the same amount of sports for,
Well, everybody, you know, you talk Title IX, you get 10 different interpretations of what it is. Is it head count, which you can't use because football has so many more than, so I mean, it's,
You could have a Title IX
Opportunities.
file, complaint filed against you for a lot of different reasons. It's probably not as simple as just the number of boys sports and the number of girls sports. They're gonna get into expenditures, they're gonna get into facilities,
Right.
they're gonna get into number of participants and
they're
all of
gonna
that
get
stuff
into number
together.
of shower heads, they're gonna get into.
Yeah.
I mean, it's pretty in-depth, but, no, the softball has been, it's went over great. And every year we're been improving, the 3 years we've been improving, adding schools. I get, been getting, one person's called me probably once a week for the last 3 months. Are you guys adding softball next year?
Well, when we have this many of kids who are interested in it, to me, financially, it does make sense. Like, we have that many girls who are looking to participate in sports for the cost that we're gonna be gathering from it.
And I would say these, like, older numbers, they might seem kind of small, but these high school kids have known right now that there isn't anything past the younger age group. We're playing slow pitch in Aberdeen, so I know grades below these ones are a lot bigger numbers. And then I think we would actually see high school numbers go up if we actually offered it. Like, I don't foresee us even, to make a varsity team, I don't think we would even have to have any middle school kids unless we would decide to play a JV schedule too.
I think you'd wanna schedule some JV games and.
Yeah. And there's a lot of teams, actually. I was really surprised how many in this region, so we wouldn't even have to travel very far.
You have Millbank System, Redfield, Lawrence Emery, Castlewood, Mobridge.
Arlington,
I mean, just right off the top of my head, those are, play home and home, there's your 15 games.
Yeah, and Alexa had asked some of those schools to keep room in their schedule, as this was gonna be brought up for discussion, so we'll still be able to build a schedule.
Well, I know Ace Boucher's been working for a couple of years, he's been calling me all the time about doing a Saturday deal. Get about 3 teams to come up to Columbia and play a round robin thing on that field.
actually, I think, I don't know if the officiating pool, the umpire pool has kept up with the demand
No,
for
it
them in
hasn't.
the spring. I
It
think that
hasn't.
might be one of the biggest challenges, is finding certified umpires. But,
which I know they've been working on,
yeah,
getting ones in the community.
But,
you might have to use that in your
but
hometown.
through the
Yeah.
Activities Association, that's another
Yeah.
process.
And budget-wise, I did earmark this in our budget in case we were to approve it, so there is money set aside for this as the salary benefits, and it's something with it too, just
Right.
to get it started. So that wouldn't be something different, that would have to be,
Well, and as time goes on, as it gets established, every kid's gonna have their own bat. The catchers are gonna have their own catcher's mitts, and probably their catching gear. And I mean, go right on down the line. I know one team that,
Well, I think we do need to recognize that there are expenses with travel and stuff like that that aren't listed here. I think we have to recognize that.
And as Amanda put it in her opening speech, the girls are excited about
Oh,
doing
yeah, for
fundraising,
sure.
so.
yeah, I think,
I think that's what we've done with any
Yep.
other extracurricular that
And-
is approved.
you've got 5 years where you can do that. Before the school has to, I mean, when you, if that was the way it was with soccer, when we brought that into the school. That's Activities Association bylaws, you've got 5 years where you can split costs with a organization within the community. I think we did that with some golf too.
Well, we went kind of back and forth. It was at the same time when soccer kind of came in. And those sports, there were 5 activities, I think, in Groveland were cut right before I got here, 2011. And then there was community pressure to keep them, and the agreement with the board was, okay, we're gonna keep official sponsorship of them, but funding has to come from somewhere else.
117 on those numbers.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I'd say that's about right, about another $3,500 probably for home game expenses and travel. You're probably looking at 400,
20 to 25, 22.
$450 a night, a game, between either your officials or your transportation, one or the other.
I think the benefits will be well worth it. I know one team, they, talked to the guy that his wife passed away last year, and he used memorial money and bought him a new set of uniforms. So, I mean, there's always stuff out there. I'll move to approve it.
Second.
Okay, a motion from Marty, second from Heather, on to approve, sponsorship of the girls softball for the 26 season. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries.
Get in the batting cage.
We'll start construction. We've one up on Aberdeen already.
Approve out-of-district transportation requests from Langford Area School District and Webster Area School District.
The state requires that we do these annual requests for them to come into our district and pick up kids. Both of those districts pick up students in Bristol. We also send these letters out to Langford, Britain, and Aberdeen and Northwestern, because we pick up students in all of those districts. So I would recommend that you approve their requests.
So moved.
Motion from Heather to approve,
Second.
second from Sam, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Open and approve diesel gas quotes. Okay. Energy quote, it's only, so it's only an energy quote we got? Okay, this is from. No, there it is, MJ Sinclair. So let's see here. So we got the base quote of number 2 diesel of $233. Number 1 diesel, $268. With all the extra taxes, the number 2 diesel is $2.86. Number 1 diesel is $3.21. Gas. Ethanol is $2.53. Lead-free, $2.97. E85, $1.67. Okay, and that's the only quote we have. Can I hear a motion to approve the MJ Sinclair energy quote?
So moved.
Motion from Heather,
Second.
second from Sam. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Open and approve newspaper quotes and designate official newspaper for fiscal year 2026. We only have one newspaper quote from Paper Paul and the Groton Independent. My quote for legal line rate publications in SAU 8-point type is .3195 per line. base rate will be used to calculate all other options such as tabulation manner, multi-columns, etc. in accordance with state guidelines for all legal school board publications. My quote for classified advertising is 10 cents per word with a minimum charge of $9 for 30 words. My quote for local open display advertising is $5 per column inch. The current number of Groton area school district patrons who subscribe to my newspaper is 240. I've attached a listing of those subscribers. Okay. So that is our only newspaper quote. Can I hear a motion to, let's hear. Is there anybody would like to motion to approve the quote and designate the Groton Independent as our official newspaper?
So moved.
Motion from Marty,
Second.
second from Heather. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion carries. Appoint board member to serve as voting member for the North Central Special Education Cooperative Governing Board for 25-26 school year. I will appoint myself again. Thank you, everybody.
Good job. Thank you, Grant.
That's no fun, we don't even get to railroad.
I know.
Next year's gonna be the year, guys.
He's giving you a
I'm gonna
12-month
get you.
notice.
I'm getting you.
Oh?
Not you, Marty.
You wanna make a little wager on this if you're in advance?
I'm gonna lose that one, Marty. I understand that. Set dates and times for regular school board meetings. In the back, I believe it's the very last page, is that right? Yep, very last page in your booklet, we've got our board dates and times. We've got three standouts right now, which is October 14th, November 11th, and May 11th, which are our 7 AM board meetings to help accommodate for the farming members of the board or those that are busier in the fall and spring months.
Hold on a second.
Yeah.
The reason those, the October and November meetings are on Tuesday mornings, because Monday meetings are difficult for Heather. I think when I
Well,
changed this to
yeah.
7 AM on May 11th, I think that's the 11th is a Monday. Do we want to move that, need to move that to a Tuesday?
For which one? For,
May 11th. May
Oh.
11th is a Monday. If you leave that a morning meeting, you want to make it the 12th?
that would be better. Monday mornings are tough.
Okay.
No.
November 12th,
May 12th.
May 12th.
And how does 7 PM work on the rest of the meetings? Would we wanna move to 7 AM or 6 AM or 6 PM? 6 AM, so.
6 a.m.
Six-
What?
I'm
6
gonna-
a.m., let's
I'm up
get to
anyway.
I did not sign up for that.
Does 6 PM work better for anybody or 7?
It doesn't matter. 7.
Okay,
Should I serve a fruit?
we'll do 7.
Yeah, you're not feeding.
That's true, I need to eat.
Better keep the budget.
Otherwise I'll start
That
getting.
into the budget.
Better watch the budget and move to 7.
Oh. After 11 years on the board, if we switch to 6 PM, I'll probably be late every single meeting.
TJ won't know when to show up.
We gotta keep it simple for TJ.
Keep it simple for TJ.
All right, we'll just keep the board meetings at that schedule there.
Now he's used presidential privilege, you know.
Do you want to talk about meeting locations and whether or not you want to try to target any of
That's a
these
good idea.
meetings to host someplace else?
True, we had a discussion at our meeting on Wednesday, was it Wednesday last week, and we thought maybe about, going somewhere else for a meeting, like doing a meeting in Bristol and doing a meeting in Claremont, Columbia. Does that sound good to you guys?
Yeah.
Do one in the fall and one in the spring. I think maybe December 8th would be a decent one to do in Bristol. Can try for that one. And springtime gets to be tough with negotiations. March 9th looks good. That one in Columbia? Okay.
I'll work on places to have them.
Then you,
Ooh,
Hot
September
spot.
8th is a program overview.
did you say September 8th or December 8th?
December.
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 Is there one in September?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, there is. Yeah.
Christmas in Bristol.
I'll eat myself hot spot steak for Christmas.
Nobody does anything November 11th for the Veterans Day stuff? Just double checking that. Okay.
Not, no.
Just making sure. I know that they have stuff at the elementary.
Yeah, that's
We
just,
do, Brett will be occupied for sure.
Yeah.
He's gonna have to pour coffee by himself, maybe. Or Shelby can go pour coffee. That's the
I usually
breakfast
go
meal.
over there, yeah.
Oh, yeah, that's in the morning.
That's okay, we'll figure it out.
okay.
I think we had one this year on
Brett
that
will
day
probably
too,
be- Brett will
didn't we?
probably be in
What's that?
I think we had one this year, that morning too.
Was it
Didn't
the
we?
morning of the Veterans Day program? It was probably, that's probably a different day, cause where the Monday, Tuesday falls.
True. I don't know.
Yeah.
It won't be that big of a deal.
No, okay. Set salaries for board members, presently $50 per meeting and $75 per meeting for the chairman, mileage as applicable.
Move to leave it as is.
Artie moves to leave them the same.
Second.
Second from Heather, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Set rate for substitute teachers, 25-26 school year, recommend $135 per day, which is currently $135 a day. Is that,
We need to,
looks good, we did a raise last
We've
year.
gone up, we went up a little bit last year, I think, to make sure we're not right where our regular full-time teachers are, we have to kind of where we need to stay, yeah.
Okay.
Good spot, we're competitive
Yeah.
right now.
And then I remember looking at a survey when we were kind of looking at this earlier this spring, and we're up there.
Okay.
I'm not saying they're overpaid.
Move to approve.
Motion from Marty to approve,
second.
second from Heather, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Set rate for substitute bus drivers, 25-26 school year, recommending at $100 a day, which is currently $100 a day.
Move to approve.
Motion from Marty to approve. Second from Nick, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. 13, establish activity missions and school lunch prices for 24-25 school year. No changes are the recommendations for all of them.
Just, does the conference still set the rates for admission, or is it still uniform across the conference, or is that?
They talk about it, and right now we're
Really
kind of
set it
uniform.
with
We're gonna be getting into a point where we really probably have to talk about that, what that is. It's just,
Well,
it's hard to come off that $5 because then you're dealing with a lot of change that gets to be
I know, but,
kind of a pain.
You know,
But
football officials pay went up $25 I had this year, so that's now $125 a night, which $500 for 4 home games, but it's still $500.
But hopefully,
And I would think everything else, Activities Association has been reviewing them annually now since we put that pay for in. And it hasn't been changed since we did that, so I would assume next year there might be an adjustment in basketball, volleyball. So something to keep in mind.
because we've been at this number for several years without changing that now.
When was the last change?
Probably when we started double headers, when girls switched to the.
I bet it's been at least 7, 8 years. It's been a while.
We're okay with the lunch prices, yep.
Yeah, unless,
I know we got pretty
there's a
discounts.
document that we have to submit at some point here, it's called the Paid Lunch Equity Tool, and we're okay with it where it is right now unless we're required by that to increase, and if it does, I'll bring it back to you in August. We've gotten caught in that before where they say, hey, you gotta go up a nickel or whatever, so hopefully not, but.
Move Move to approve as presented.
Motion from Marty to approve.
Second?
Second from Heather. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Number 14, set rate for OST services for 25-26 school year. No change recommended.
Move to approve.
Motion from Marty, second from Nick. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Can I hear a motion to adjourn? Sure. Motion from Marty to adjourn. Second from Heather. All in favor, say aye. All opposed?